This is a broadcast community, primarily a Zoom meeting, I think of it as, but it also goes out live to Facebook and YouTube, and then it's archived on both Facebook and YouTube. So you can, those of you there can join us on Zoom if you would like. If you'd like to do that, if you go to robertbeatty.com, which is my website, you will find a way to get the link, and then you can join us more in person, more interactively. So I have here a beautiful poem. It's a little prose piece. Feels like I circle back to this one pretty frequently. It's by one of the great mystics of the 20th century, a man named Albert Einstein. A human being is part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and in space. They experience themselves, their thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a sort of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. A human being is part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and in space. They experience themselves, their thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. $2,600 ago, an ordinary human being just like us walked on the earth. He became dissatisfied with the fruits of success and privilege. Discovered sickness, old age, decay, and death. And received a hint that there might be something else. in the form of a wandering mendicant, a monk. And he devoted his life 100% to his spiritual practice for some years. And then something happened of such a magnitude that we are, to this day, following in his footsteps. I think that probably many other people had awakened. There had been shamans for thousands of years who understood the nature of reality. But he figured out how to teach it. I'm reminded of a story I heard of an Inuit shaman who, when told by a visiting person from the south, you know, a few years ago, people walked on the moon. A person walked on the moon. To which he replied, so what? Our shamans have been doing that for thousands of years. So here we are, following in the footsteps of the Buddha all this time later, sitting down, going to pay attention to what happens in us and around us. And we can remind ourselves of the refuges. We can remind ourselves that it's possible to take refuge moment after moment in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Please join me if you wish, or just hear this as sound. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Refuge in being awake in this moment. Refuge in the way things actually are. Refuge in the community of practice. If we stay in thinking, we stay fragmented. Thinking is, by its nature, subject-object. I think this, I think that. This is my opinion about this or that. I'm on this side. I see you over there. I have my theories and opinions about who you are. You believe that and you're wrong. To go beyond this dualism is not a thinking process. Not at all. It's a being. It's a willingness to be with what is at all the sense doors. It's a willingness to surrender to reality. And one portal, a doorway into the present moment, involves coming home to the body. Opening to the actual experience of there being a body sitting here. And so what is it that we discover when we direct awareness toward this living form? The body is life. Please direct awareness somehow, mysteriously, to the place you would call your hands. It's alive. To the feet and the toes. Toward the legs. Alive. The pressure of the buttocks on the chair. Open awareness in the arms and the shoulders. All the way from the pubic bone to the shoulders, the chest, the solar plexus, the heart, the breathing. Notice the sacrum in the back. Will probably require bringing the mind into awakeness somehow and then directing toward now perhaps the neck and head. The face, the cheeks, the lips, the eyes. It's alive, isn't it? It breathes. And so let us abide in this breathing, in this precious, one-of-a-kind body. There's never been one like this before, and there never will be again. And one strategy recommended by the Buddha is to find a place where we can be a little secluded, where we can sit down and put aside all distractions, to turn off the phone, to find a comfortable enough posture, and then decide to sit still, to cease the constant searching for an escape from the discomforts. To cease the search for an escape from itches and thirsts and hungers and curiosities about what could be found on the phone. And we can then take up mindfulness of breathing as a home base. And so the home base, the target, the primary meditation object becomes the actual sensations of in-breathing and out-breathing. The mind is prone to lots of thinking. It creates categories. It experiences pleasant and unpleasant at all the sense doors. It is visited by the 5 hindrances, by desire and disliking and aversion, by restless agitation and worry, by sloth and torpor, dullness, by doubt. With the emergence of mindfulness, with the emergence of the Buddha, of that which knows, come home to the sensations of breathing, please. Be kind to yourself. Simply drop out of the thinking. You don't need to stop it. It stops on its own. But what we can do is be clear what our intention is. I intend to be at home here in the present moment in the breath. You may discover that the mind wanders a whole lot, that it wanders most of the time, and that waking up into mindfulness is a rare occasion. Or mindfulness may become quite predominant. And then the wandering may be very occasional. Both experiences are of profound importance. Breathing in and knowing it. Breathing out and knowing it. We remain clear in the intention of refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In the intention of staying aware of breathing in and breathing out. In the intention of noticing everything that happens. And attitude, of course, is everything. We not only have awareness, but we bring to it love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. We also develop these beautiful qualities through our practice. And we can clarify our intention. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I find myself right now. And oftentimes we will discover discomforts, pain, heartbreak, loss. It's the nature of a world in which change is the norm. When I discover that I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, whether it's anger or hatred or fear or physical illness or emotional states, however I discover myself to be, I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. A willingness to feel what's really happening. To hold myself solid in it. To not abandon myself. I aspire to hold myself in sweet, tender, patient compassion. We're not doing anything special in meditation. We're just being aware. What at the outset seems something special to do for a certain time in our day becomes our way of life. We're naturally drawn to be aware when driving, when washing dishes, when even sitting at the computer. We're drawn to eating mindfully, to getting the kids out the door mindfully. Because to be mindful means to be alive, to be present for what's happening in this moment. As we become accustomed to engaging in the reality of the body, the discontinuity between the trance states, the fantasies, and reality becomes more and more apparent. Time and again we wake up and realize, oh, wandering mind. We develop the capacity to notice the qualities of mind that are present. Is this a mind which is very spacious and open and loving and compassionate? Or is this a mind that's contracted, frightened, jealous, lonely, striving, restless? Is this a mind shot through with love and connection and a sense of belonging? Or is it that familiar old isolation and loneliness, jealousy, fear? Each breath is an invitation. Come home. It seems as though we sit here, each of us, alone in our skin, in our own life path, in our own successes and failures, our own sickness and health. And there is some truth to that reality, of course. We must be self-responsible and watch out for ourselves. There's another tuning, however, which is where we become freer. And we hint toward that with, may all beings share in the merits of our practice. May every single human being on the earth be supported by our practice somehow. May my taking responsibility for the greed, hatred, and ignorance that are in this living process affect the most poverty-stricken, oppressed, sick people in the world. May it also include the powerful, those who have vast wealth, power. May the merits of my practice affect the smallest of all the mammals, the great mammals, the marsupials, the fish, everyone. And in so doing, may I remember my interbeing with all of life. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of this practice. Let us call to our hearts our teachers and mentors. I call to the altar of our hearts Ruth Denison. Matt Flickstein, Stephen Levine, a number of fine, loving psychotherapists. Mrs. McLagan in the 5th grade, who saw me. Mr. Rice, the barber, who listened. Think of your teachers and mentors. You may remember someone you haven't thought of for a long time. Rest. Take delight in the incredible web of life that has supported you from the beginning. And with this attitude of sharing of merits and of gratitude, please let us now Notice the aliveness of the body as it sits here. And then allow the eyes to open. First, perhaps bring awareness into the eyes, into the face. And then notice what it takes. We can, of course, just snap our eyes open, but then we miss something. More helpful to notice that there are eyes. There is a region of the body we call eyes. And then to make the effort to open, to notice it takes an intention and then the activity, the effort of opening. And then we're seeing. And we could continue the practice of may all beings share in the merits of my practice with seeing each other. May all of the beings here today, now, those with cameras on, those with cameras off, those that are shaped like dogs, those that are shaped like humans, feels nice, doesn't it? May you share in the merits of my practice. Because you already are. We already are. I have a nice picture here. I don't know whether I can get it to come through the... Oh, that'll work, yeah. It's Kamala Masters and Kendall Summers. They were at Cloud Mountain this morning teaching a retreat. Steve Armstrong and Kamala were teaching it. Steve from Hawaii and Kamala from Cloud Mountain, and Kendall was doing support for making it all happen. I've known Kamala for 50 years. Good God. And Kendall reminded me Kamala is teaching this evening at 6:30. Not Kamala, Kendall. You can find the link for that on the PIMC website. She does it twice a month, first and third Sundays of the month. And she brings a very beautiful perspective from her decades of practice to the teaching. And she's also teaching in this seat, not this seat here, but this spot, next Sunday morning, as I shall be away. And I guess I'll speak to the generosity practice for a moment in PIMC. This is a pretty remarkable mission. Joan Scher said, as is Kendall. Yes, two amazing human beings. I started teaching in Portland in 1979. I have to be generous when I think of who that young man was teaching and be kind with him. But the intention was good. And the community has grown in depth and breadth ever since then. I taught in 5 different places in Portland until we finally bought our building now a long time ago, 2004. At the time, it seemed like the present moment. And anyway, we'll be moving back in the early October after the building project is done. The building will be wheelchair accessible and really quite beautiful in some ways. We chose the living room carpet the other day and the paint, and it's all going to be very nicely upgraded. And we had 2 remarkable donors, actually, who between them, they gave us $500,000. Otherwise, the whole thing would not have happened. And we have our ongoing expenses of keeping the place running and so on. So that's where you come in. If you'd like, if you would take delight in it, you can make a contribution, and the best kind of contributions are monthly. And so you arrange with your bank to send a monthly contribution. I think you can also do it through PIMC. And to give until your heart feels full. It's a beautiful phrase, I think, to give until your heart feels full. We all have very different financial circumstances, and the amount is really not that critical. What's important is the fact that we recognize what's important to us and that we then support it. So that's all I want to say. Before long, those of you that live in Portland can support by coming and doing a work party or taking a little project, keeping some region of the place dusted or something. There's going to be lots of volunteer opportunities. And Eileen just put, remember, you can purchase, what's that? Robert's book, Mindfulness for a Happy Life. Well, there's a good idea. It's also on Audible. There's a mistake in it on Audible, and I have to correct it. I'm in debate about correcting it, though. It's like when they make a carpet in Iran, for instance, they always make one intentional error, and they say only Allah could make something perfect. So I think it's probably okay. There's a mistake, but I probably should fix it. It's a pain. Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to say. I could keep talking forever, as you know. I'm going to pause and let Jim Dalton bring you into your bodies mindfully, and then I shall come back in a little while when he's done, and we'll be doing a gratitude practice. Mr. Dalton, I think you have seized the screen.
I've created a spotlight on this aging body that's still able to stand up. I invite you to do the same. Stand up. Feel the sense of agency, balancing this complicated, funny flapping things. We have ends of our arms and our connection with the earth. As we were going through our dedication of practice to the wider world beyond our little community, I was thinking of the fellow that taught me the Dabashi back, I think it was 2009. He came to me as a student looking for balance, but he could stand for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and shift his weight back and forth. But he'd had some strokes, 2 or 3 strokes. And so his body didn't work easily and smoothly, but he managed to move his weight back and forth. And then after a short time, he would sit down and he would imitate what I was doing from a chair. I was teaching him Tai Chi, and he found this Shibashi one on the internet, and he was able to do it at home with a shelf close at hand that he could reinforce his stability. You know. But in the studio, he couldn't do it. So he said, "But you should do it, Jim. You should do it. You need to share this with people." So I always think of Tom Perry when I sink and lift my arms and feel that sense of agency. I can move against gravity, and then I can release. And then I can question the words that I'm using. Who is this I? It's the body that rises and it feels like this. And it's the body that rests and releases and it feels like this. The I isn't necessary. Just the knowing of lifting and resting. And Tom would do it in his chair, just using his arms and lubrication in his shoulders and his elbows and his wrists. And it would feel like this. So he pointed at a gesture, a system of gestures that would bring us into grounded feeling of agency, resisting gravity, and expanding the chest, coming back and resting again. So we learn a series of gestures, but we don't cling to any of them. We open them till they end, and then we release them. But we feel the rib cage open and air flowing in. More capacity that we didn't know we had. Again, sensing that agency, opening, and then gathering in and grounded in the earth. Opening into welcoming space. There's no resistance when we open the arms. The space around us accepts us. Then we reach overhead and just pause. Stretching up, feel the new sensations in the shoulder sockets. Take a breath. Feel how the expanding lungs move against the rib cage. And then sweep over to one side and then to the other. And so we can remember this later. We give it a name, painting a rainbow. But it's the feeling of the weight shifting over here. Feel the engagement of one side of the body, drawing through the middle to the other side. And the body knows how to balance with all this weight over here. So we're beginning to understand something of the beauty of this standing form, the intelligent beauty of sinking, crossing the wrists, coming up, and then opening. At each stage of the gesture, there's a new organization, a new balance, feels like this when our arms are in front of our chest. It feels like this when our palms are facing outward. It feels like this as they drift down. One sequence leads to another. Pressing out. Resting. Resisting gravity again, lifting. And drifting down. Then we pause. Notice the life in the feet, the life in the hands, in the shoulders, the rib cage expanding, releasing, and then moving out again. This time out and up, and then with the palms, with the wrists very loose and just relaxed, extend upward. So the effort is in the spine, in the shoulders, and it comes from the base of the spine up to the wrists, but the wrists are relaxed. And then the arm starts relaxing, the shoulders. Opening slowly. We can fill the lungs and release as we need to. Holding at the top and feeling the extension of the body, extending upward from the soles of the feet to the fingertips. There's sensations. Release the wrists and then release the shoulders. Opening. Each segment released to open to the next. No clinging, no grasping, just willingness to open now. How does it feel to open to the side? To lift. Pause at the top and just point the fingers towards the sky. Sensations in the palm, in the shoulders, in the feet. Release the wrists, release the elbows, release the shoulders, drifting down. Pausing. Sinking into the knees, shoulders back. What's the mood of this standing form now that these joints have been stretched and lubricated by soft, round movements? It's actually a form of healing, form of rebuilding the immune system from the stress we may have felt at times during the last week. We at least get back to normal, quote, strength and renewal in the immune system by just simple movements. The mood feels different. So bring our hands together in gratitude, and we'll join together soon, tomorrow night or next Sunday. Take care.
Thank you, Jim. Well, it's going to take me a moment to get set up here.
I need to respond to the chat. I didn't see the chat.
I beg your pardon, Jim?
I need to respond to the chat. I didn't see the chat while I was on Spotlight,
Okay.
but there was a person who asked me to describe what I was doing because he's blind and cannot see me, and I didn't see it till now. So I will remember. I see your name, and when I see that name again, I'll organize my descriptions a little different.
You know, it's an interesting question of whether to wait until you recognize his name, or that as part of our becoming more responsive and more inclusive, that we try to remember that all the time.
But it unleashes a chattiness in me that is a little
That's
dangerous.
true.
So I'll find the middle path next time.
Self-knowledge is a very useful thing. Funny. All right, I need to do a little adjusting here on my screen so that I have everything in the right place. My apologies to those of you on Facebook and YouTube. I almost got it right. I had Jim showing in my preview screen, but I forgot to press the thing that changes it to send it to you till the end. So I've got this happening now. Please bear with me. Exit full screen. Do this to the top. Very nice. There it is. View. Oh, that's good. Bring this over here. Down. There we go. View, gallery. Hide this. All right. Well, as you know, I have a predilection for humor. I once heard a beautiful statement, beautiful to me, which is life without a sense of humor just isn't very funny. So I'm going to begin with a little bit of humor about gratitude. It's called The Atheist and the Lord. An atheist was taking a walk through the woods, admiring all that the accident of evolution had created. What majestic trees, what beautiful fish, what What magnificent animals, he said to himself as he was walking along the river. He heard a rustling in the bushes and behind him and turned and looked. He saw a 7-foot grizzly charging towards him. He began to run as fast as he could up the path. He looked over his shoulder and saw that the bear was closing in on him. He tried to run ever faster, so scared that tears were coming to his eyes. He looked over his shoulder again and the bear was ever closer. His heart was pumping frantically as he tried to run even faster, but he tripped and fell to the ground. He rolled over to pick himself up and saw the bear right on top of him, raising his paw to kill him. At that instant he cried out, "Oh my God!" Just then, time stopped. The bear froze, the forest was silent, the river even stopped moving. A bright light shone upon the man and a voice came out of the sky saying, "You deny my existence all these years, teach others I don't exist, and even credit my creation to a cosmic accident. And now, do you expect me to help you out of this predicament? Am I to count you as a believer?" The atheist, ever prideful, looked into the light and said, "Well, it would be rather hypocritical to ask to be a Christian after all these years, but could you make the bear a Christian?" "Very well," said the voice. As the light went out, the river ran, the sounds of the forest continued, and the bear miraculously put his paw down. The bear then brought both paws together, bowed his head, and said, "Lord, I thank you for this food which I am about to receive." So, a little humor about gratitude. So, silly. Gratitude. I first heard way back when I was working in drug and alcohol treatment and going to AA meetings. And I heard a lot about the attitude of gratitude. It's very different from the attitude of, "Poor me, ain't it awful, why is it so hard for me," from the victim position, and from the natural tendency, and I think the brain and consciousness research people have clarified this, that we have an inherent tendency to see what's wrong, to see what's lacking. And there's strong survival value. Those beings, those human beings, when we got to be humans even, who would see the upcoming problems, who would always be looking for the lack, would survive. They'd make it through the famine, or they'd be prepared about the bear coming or whatever. So it's very natural for us to see what's wrong with ourselves, to see what's wrong with other people, and to see where we don't have enough. We can see there are some, not usually referred to as this in this vocabulary, but there is an epidemic, actually, of tragically, with the accumulation of wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer people, those fewer and fewer people still feel they do not have enough. They're worried about money. And that means that they live in a world of lack. They don't have enough somehow. And that's true in some ways for most of us. We have this sense we don't have enough. So the practice of gratitude is one of filling in that gap, of perceiving reality more truthfully and recognizing how much we actually have. I was prompted to speak about this today from the teachings that I'm working with Matt Flickstein. And much of what I'm going to say today comes straight from his teaching. Matt is a teacher. He lives in Virginia. I've studied with him on and off for the last 10 years. He's a non-dual teacher. He began very much in the Theravada Buddhist model and has evolved into a way of being and teaching that I find very useful and balancing. And I'm doing a 1-year training program with him right now. He keeps retiring and then doing another something. So I want to talk about sympathetic joy to start with. And first, no, let me back up. I think I want first to speak about the contracted mind, the lonely mind, the mind of I don't have enough, the mind of the 5 hindrances, the mind of depression and despair, the mind of anger and hatred, the mind of prejudice. There are so many emotional states that we have that support our separateness, our experience of separateness. And I think I want to go back to the poem, the Einstein poem, in a minute and just go through it once more time. But there are 4 states. There's a description of 4 different qualities of consciousness, which are known as the Brahma Viharas, the abode of the gods, which are cultivated in Buddhism and actually every other tradition in one way or another. And these are not only practices, but they are, and I find this very interesting and discovering it to be more and more true, they are in fact our natural state. When the contractions and the fearfulness and the greed, hatred, and delusion diminish or are eliminated from consciousness, what's left is love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And in a way it makes sense because it makes total sense. If my identity is limited to my separate self, to this that gets born and dies, it's always frightened because it always knows that death is coming. It also knows that the life can be a zero-sum game. There may only be enough food for one of us, and so therefore I'm going to have it for me. Since my needs are the most important, I don't want to get overwhelmed with your feelings or emotions or life circumstance, I'm certainly not going to be very compassionate. And when you're having success and happiness, I'm going to be jealous of you because there isn't an infinite amount of that. So therefore, if you're getting it, I'm not. You probably recognize this, don't you? I certainly do. It's like it's seen as normal, actually. On the other hand, if for a moment we could look at these little postage stamps and see not you as another, but you as me. Wouldn't that be different? I have something, I'll share it, of course. I had a very powerful experience a long time ago now. My daughter's 35 and she was 2.5, maybe 3, 2.5, maybe 2. We went to Kanita hot springs, which are gone, sadly. And we were in the big pools. And they weren't hot. They were just kind of a little warmer than body temperature. And we were there in the afternoon and the temperature dropped and then the sun went down. And then the wind was blowing. And suddenly I realized it's going to be really cold getting out of these pools. And something happened, which was, it's not an unusual thing, but we got out quickly and we ran to our towels and I wrapped her in both towels and got her warm and dry and paid no attention to the fact that I was really cold. because that was just the only sensible thing to do. It was the compassionate thing to do. It was also wise because taking care of my needs first would have resulted in her freaking out, and then we would have had more to deal with. But there's this capacity that we have as humans to think of the other as very important, and to perceive the other even as self. I've been graced with the experience a few times on retreats where looking around the circle, it's so obvious to me that we're one. It's not a conception. It's like known. So there are four categories of these Brahma Viharas or divine abodes, and they are understood to be limitless. There is no shortage of them. The first is loving kindness. The word loving kindness was coined by the women of the Polytech Society in London in the late 1800s, 1898 or something like that. They were first translating the Pali Canon, and they felt very uncomfortable using the word love, so they created the term loving kindness. I've heard various other definitions, which are loving friendliness, love itself. It's agape in the Catholic world. It means it's the love of God, the love of the one. So in love, there's room for everything. It's a beautiful way of putting it. Achan Samedo put it that way. So when I say in the meditation, I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment, it's also a synonym with awareness. I want to be open in a non-judgmental way to everything that arises. When love encounters suffering, it turns into compassion. Oh, there's hurt here. How can I respond to this hurt? Oh, there's hurt in you. How can I respond to this hurt? How can we together alleviate your suffering? On a societal level, it's how can we together cooperate for the greater good so that everyone can suffer less. And then we come to sympathetic joy. And sympathetic joy is the practice and experience of taking delight in the success and happiness of others. In a way, it's very simple. And this is where I want to pick up the pieces that Matt has helped make very clear for me in the last little while. I should finish the four. And then there's a fourth Brahma Vihara, which is equanimity, which I'll be talking about in a week or two, probably 2 or 3 weeks, in which we, it's not hard-heartedness, but in which we, as we meditate, we become more and more sensitive and more compassionate. And there has to be some capacity as well in order to allow the world to be as it is, to allow the suffering of the world to be as it is, and to not completely be overwhelmed by it. And there's a natural developmental process that I've experienced in many, many meditators, that they get to a certain point that they can't stand it. To be checking out at the grocery store and to be open-hearted and loving and compassionate, and to realize how depressed the checkout person is. Or to be living with a partner who's suffering from a lot of anxiety or depression. There's a way we have to learn how to be, in a way, transparent to that. And the practice of equanimity is that. So I want to speak about sympathetic joy. I take delight in the success and happiness of others. When that's happening, judgment, aversion, and self-interest are absent. We're just, it's kind of the joy of a small child. It's like, oh, you're happy? Well, I'm happy too. I take delight in your well-being. And it's not intended to be only with those who are near and dear to us. It's actually intended to be, and it develops with anyone at all who we experience being successful and happy and so on. There are, however, some perceptual distortions. This is Matt's terminology that I really like. And these perceptual distortions keep us from feeling sympathetic joy. The first is jealousy. Jealousy, envy. It's they're having this success, and why am I not? I should be having that. I want to have that. Or I want their possessions. I want to be on that lovely vacation, or I want to be marrying that terrific person, or whatever it is that we feel jealous about. Rather than, they're experiencing delight and happiness. May they experience it fully and for as long as they can. We're also kept from sympathetic delight and joy through bias and prejudice. When we unconsciously have judgments against others, we don't let them into our hearts. It's like, that's a different category of people. And somehow or another, I can't open my heart in this circumstance. There's another, what's the word? Perceptual distortion is when we compare ourselves to others. When I'm better than this other person, I have pride. When I'm less than, I can be envious of them. And the movement of sympathetic delight is toward everybody's happiness is our happiness. It's I just remembering an experience recently when someone was speaking to me of this tremendous, it was a person who had wanted to get pregnant for so long. And it was a dream that she thought would never come true. And it came true late in her possibly reproductive years. And then it happened. And we were speaking, and she was so luminous with the delight of her new baby. And so was I. It's like, wow. Now, I do not want to have a new baby. But I could take, I've been there, done that. That's too exhausting at this point. Grandchildren are plenty. But I was aware, and I shared with her, I'm getting a contact high because she was just so delighted. So, if I can take delight in other people's happiness, my world is rather full. Similarly and importantly, if I can experience compassion with other people's suffering, my heart is really full there too. I don't have to take it on and make it mine, but I can be full with them. So one of the ways to practice sympathetic joy is to be conscious of it, that when someone is experiencing joy and happiness around us, to notice, are these perceptual distortions there? Am I envious? Am I judgmental of them in some way? Do I have bias toward their circumstances? And am I comparing myself with them? I guess I'll share this with you. It's a little embarrassing, but I tend to share the embarrassing things. I noticed there was an email a couple of days ago from Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach that they're now creating a whole online digital sort of Sangha. They're creating small groups that will then, one of their other students will be supporting this small group, and they're doing this really big thing. And I had this thought, well, there's Jack once again. he's doing this huge thing, and here I am just leading little old PIMC. And so I make myself less than and imagining, oh, what if I could do that, or I should be doing that. Fortunately, that's an old pattern with me. And so I was able to notice it and then actually take some delight in the fact that they're doing this. It's going to affect the lives of many people. And it's a quality of generativity. So simply noticing the what we call it, the perceptual distortions, the jealousy, for instance, just noticing it is a big step, because then we realize that jealousy isn't personal. It's just a pattern. And then we can go beyond it. So there's a daily practice we can do, which is the practice of gratitude. And one way to do it goes like this. Before you sit down to practice in the morning, or when you sit down to practice, think of 3 or 4 things for which you are grateful. Before you go to bed at night, write down, or at least think of, 3 or 4 things that happened during the day for which you're grateful. Could be really little things. I got to have lunch. Or I got a phone call from somebody. I've been hoping to get that phone call. And the purpose of this is to incline the heart-mind toward being grateful, because it naturally inclines toward being ungrateful and seeing the problems. And so I have a guided meditation here that Matt created that I want to read to you. And so I invite you to sit comfortably upright. And it'll take a couple or 3 minutes, maybe 4. I'm not sure. So just rest into this present moment. Let your awareness come into now, into here, into your body. And place your attention on your breath, on the sensations of breathing. And allow yourself to feel peaceful and contented and centered. Spend some time thinking of all the wonderful things that you have in your life, including nutritious food, a comfortable place to live, and of course, in any list like this, some of them may be things that you don't have. In which case, notice that. What happens when that's spoken? You might have a satisfying job or career. You might be grateful for good health. And of course, there will be parts of you that may not be healthy. It may be heavily challenged, but in that case, think of the good health that you do have. A supportive family, perhaps close friends, Let yourself feel deep gratitude for these things. Think of your parents, whether they're still alive or not. You may well have had very conflicted, difficult relationships with them. But try even then to extend gratitude to them for all they did for you. How they took care of you when you were an infant. How they fed and clothed you. How they took care of you when you were sick. How they gave so much of their lives to help you become a functioning, mature adult. Think of your loved ones. Quite particularly, think of a loved one. Send them your heartfelt gratitude for all the love, care, and support they've given to you over the years. Think of your good friends and feel grateful for their unconditional acceptance, love, and support. Think of a friend. Notice the gratitude that you can have. Think of your casual acquaintances, for example, your neighbors, co-workers, mail carriers, shopkeepers, the car repair people. Recognize how every single one of them supports your life and extend feelings of gratitude to them. Arouse gratitude for the pains and illnesses of your body and for the difficult emotions in your mind. Recognize that they are your best teachers of patience, compassion, and wisdom. Think of the difficult people in your life and extend your gratitude for the precious learning you receive from them. Be deeply thankful that they provide the opportunity to become aware of the reaction patterns that prevent you from living from your heart. Recognize the precious opportunity you have to hear and practice spiritual teachings. Arouse gratitude for all the spiritual teachers that have touched your life in any way. Connect with gratitude for the entirety of your life, for the presence of flowers and trees, birds, all the animals, the planets, the stars, for all of humanity. Allow gratitude to arise for all that life contains. Allow your gratitude to become a source of joy and peace. Feel the peace within you and surrounding you. From your heart, repeat as often as you'd like. May all beings live with gratitude, contentment, and peace. May all beings live with gratitude, contentment, and peace. Inhabiting this body in all of its aliveness. Countless systems working in harmony with each other. Of course, as we age, sometimes it takes help. Sometimes we need surgeries. Oftentimes we need pharmaceuticals. Being grateful for all this support that we have to keep going. May all beings experience gratitude, peace, and ease. And please now, noticing the entirety of your body from the tip of the toes to the top of the head. And grateful for this less than perfect medium we call Zoom. Grateful for the wealth to have a computer or some other device that will work. Grateful for the capacity of hearing and seeing. And now, when you're ready, letting your eyes open. Open and seeing. And the seeing may be clear or not clear. It could be it will be exactly as it is. And I have a couple of more things I want to say about gratitude, and then I'd like to open up and hear about your experiences. One is a kind of homework. There may be people in your life who have been present for you in ways for which you might feel grateful. I have a scoutmaster, had a scoutmaster a long time ago. I tried to find him to tell him how grateful I was for what he gave to me. I never succeeded in finding him. But there's a powerful practice you can do, which is to think of 2 or 3 people. And it could be someone you live with. Think of 2 or 3 people towards whom you feel gratitude. And write them. Actually, write a snail mail letter or an email. Or tell them that I feel really grateful. I have a lot of gratitude. And it's not just I have gratitude, but I have gratitude because of this thing you did that affected my life. Oh, I'd like to tell Mrs. McLagan, I'm sure she's long dead. Mrs. McLagan in 5th grade who paid attention to me. And I was hurting badly. She taught me about fractions and about the fact that I was worth listening to. Quite something. Oh, I just had another one come up. So anyway, that's a possibility. And see what happens if you do that. And then the other practice, of course, is to every day to really start changing the attitude toward gratitude. And see if in fact it leads to more and more sympathetic joy and delight. Because you'll be so full. You'll be so full you'll have room for the delight of others. So that said, I want to close this and open that and make this out to full screen. Ba-doom. There you are. So I'm going to put on my headset so I can hear you and me, unfortunately, and ask you, do you have any comments or sharing on this sympathetic joy and gratitude practice? Comments, questions, complaints?
Good morning, Robert.
I hear someone. Would you wave? Oh, there you are. It's Pamela. Hi. Oh,
More
hang on.
and more.
Pulled up my headset. Hello, I'm back.
More and more, I'm hearing sympathetic joy, mudita, translated as appreciative joy, which kind of eliminates the association of sympathy with pity. And I'm wondering, it sits better with me, appreciative joy.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joan just posted in the chat, will I be posting the guided meditation? I think I won't, or I can't really, because it's in a book, and I would need to check with Matt if that was okay. I'll do that, but I won't be posting it today. That's interesting noise. Are you all hearing that?
Faintly.
I wonder if there's someone unmuted. Let me check.
I-
Eileen, I'm going to mute you. Did you want to share, Eileen? No. Appreciative joy. I wonder if I can remember that. Oh, now Eileen is speaking, but you're not, but you're muted. So you need to unmute yourself.
You probably hear that noise again, yes?
I do, yes.
Okay, that's my apartment comes through. I'll try to make it quick then. Because a lot of people don't read the chat, I wanted to just share what I wrote, which is that I was the one who forwarded that email about what they're doing from Spirit Rock. I forwarded it to Robert, and I think that the reason I applied, and I needed to a lower fee because of my financial situation. And so I wrote and had to apply for that. And I really think it's in part because I talked about Robert and PIMC and this Sangha. And so I think that's why I was accepted in great part, as well as my charm. But Robert, to me, is the root. And so to mirror what Cricket said, you're doing that here. Cricket wrote that you were already doing this because you knew most of us. And so I just wanted to thank you and make sure everybody else knew that.
Thanks, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, Danny.
How are you?
I'm rather well.
I was just thinking about the gratitude part and the appreciative joy, but I'm just very grateful that we're coming out of this incredibly, I guess, dark period. That we've had
Mm,
this community that has helped you and the whole community, the Sangha. I'm very grateful that we've had this through this very difficult period where we couldn't see people, we couldn't. We only had this. I mean, I'm grateful we had Zoom for this period. And this had
mm-hmm.
happened 10 years ago. We wouldn't have had this. When they had this in 1918, they couldn't do this. So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that we've had this connection, we've had this ability, and that we're very grateful that that we have a vaccine, that we're coming out of this, that we can actually hug and touch people again. What a concept, that
Mm-hmm.
we can hold people again. So that it's my heart is full of gratitude for that, and the work that this community has done, PIMC has done during this very difficult time we've gone through, a historically difficult time.
Yeah.
So it's really remarkable
Thanks, Danny.
what you've done and what this community has done and been for me. Thank you.
You know, there is a person. I maybe I'll look up her name because I will likely speak of her in the future too. There's a woman who was born in Eastern Europe who I'm forgetting most of the story. Anyway, she was very interested in science and in biochemistry, and she had an intuition. She became obsessed with this intuition about messenger RNA and how it could be used to get information inside cells in order to, in this case, make vaccines that work. And I feel very teary talking about it. At every turn, everyone said, no, you can't do it. We won't do it. But she was obsessed. She moved to America. She got into a lab. The lab closed, but she was like a dog with a bone. And finally, I forget the details, but they figured it out, how to use this messenger RNA to get the vaccine into the cells. And she saved millions of lives. And when people say, one of the reticences is that this vaccine, they pushed it too fast and so on. The research for this vaccine delivery system has been going on for over 10 years. And all that was needed was figuring out how to get whatever little piece of the COVID virus into the cells. Then the immune system would produce the immunity. But interesting, it's emotional for me. One human being, this woman, was possessed. She's like a messenger. That's funny. Amazing. So gratitude. Wow. And I guess a part that really moves me about it is she kept, oh, here it is. Katalin Carico. She's 66. People turned away from her any number of times. Some of them really big. And she kept going. Quite something. I'm really grateful to Ruth Dennison. PIMC would not exist without Ruth. I was teaching when I met her, but she transformed everything, and she provided the financial foundation for the creation of PIMC and the encouragement.
Good morning.
Hello, Eric.
It's Eric. Hi. I had a very beautiful time, the gratitude meditation, and I wanted to thank you for that. And actually, a few times over the last few weeks, you brought up your fifth grade teacher, and
Yeah.
I found that so beautiful. And this morning it meant so much to me because I was a abused child, and I was in foster care, and it made me think of all of the like speech therapists and behavior. I was in the behavior class because I like tried to murder my teachers and stuff because I was a very crazy child, really. And this one particular fifth grade teacher and my foster parents and just all of these people who saw this angry, hurt child and over again were so patient, and I don't know, like I was a 15-year-old child, and I was homeless, and some woman just walked up to me, and I had never met her before, and she let me live in her house and helped get my first job. And I just think of these people, and I don't know how many times my life was saved, but I'm just so grateful. And it's why I started working with children, because I realized that those angry children are a possibility to change the future. And I just think it's so beautiful that people saw this stranger's child over and over again help me. And I'm just so grateful. And I'm just grateful that you reminded me of that. And it just helps me to remember to ripple it out in the world and to love and be patient with children, because that teacher, you probably were just another student she was very kind to. And I think about that to the people who helped me too. And so it's so important to, even if we don't know and never, even if we don't see the people again, to be kind and helpful. And I don't know, I guess I'm just rambling, but I'm just so grateful for the people that over and over again say, and I'm so grateful that you reminded me. So thank you.
That's a lovely story. When you were 15, the woman that took you in. That's cool.
She's one of my best friends now, and to this day, she still helps sexually abused teenagers. She's just a beautiful, kind, compassionate woman. And I've honestly not met anybody like her. So anyway.
Hey, Robert.
Timothy.
Hi, it's the Tim and Eugene. Janet and I are just feeling so much gratefulness for having bodies that can. We did a 16-mile bike ride along the river this morning, and we were feeling gratefulness for Ruth Bascom, our mayor of Eugene, who helped make this incredible bike path possible here in Eugene. And, we just, thanks to you, really, we're not taking these days for granted, these days of no smoke and no dictatorship. And anyway, just so much to be grateful for. And you are a huge part of that. And we appreciate you reminding us of being grateful. So thank you, my friend.
I bet the temperature was gorgeous this morning for bicycling.
Janet is making a morning person out of me. we're getting up, especially when it was hot. We're getting up at daybreak and getting out for a couple hours of exercise before, and it's, and a day like this, it's going to be 90, but we were out there riding it in 70-degree weather with the sun and nobody out hardly on a Sunday morning. And we have these wonderful bikes. I have a recumbent trike with an electric assist, so I can keep up with Janet. Yeah, it's really fun. So we feel pretty darn blessed. Yeah.
You don't even have to worry about balance with the trike.
No, you don't. You pull up to a stop sign or a stoplight, and you just click how much assist you want as you're taking off when the light turned green. And I tell you, it's it's really, really, really fun. Yep.
I'm going to start riding to the center again soon. Yeah. Well, we're afternoon. I have some plants to get in the ground. We harvested the garlic. Good. We got it in Jennifer put it in September, late September. And usually I get it in January, They're huge. Incredible. We have 82 heads of garlic. Very successful crop. Now the garage, we have them hanging in the garage with a fan on them. And it reeks of garlic. It's kind of cool, actually. Well, anybody sitting with something that you'd really like to share or that needs to be shared before we go? I just had a moment of gratitude that just, it's the, we belong to the Mutual Admiration Society. And that is that, Tim Blood, I am very grateful for your presence in my life. And I think it was 1,000 years ago you brought me down there to do those retreats out in Heceta Head. But I've always felt very warm and safe and welcome in your heart and Janet's heart. And it's one of the pillars for me. So thank you.
Well, I I believe Jennifer has a daughter at U of O, doesn't she?
She does.
So you have a place to stay here when you want to come down and visit her. Don't forget.
Okay, thank you. You've been very diligent about reminding me of these things.
Yes, please come visit us. Come stay with us. Yeah.
All right, thanks. So anybody have anything you want to share? Any gratitudes that have leapt up in the interim? Well, let us close with that's kind of in keeping with gratitude. Why not? Let's close with the wazifa practice from the Sufis. And it goes like this. In Sufism, in Islam, there are 101 beautiful names of God. Most Islamic prayer begins, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, whose names are compassion and mercy. That's actually on the back wall of the Dharma Hall, PIMC. This wazifa is Ya Shakur. And it translates, a version of it is how exquisitely the One is manifesting to me in this moment as you. Or we could use God. How exquisitely God is manifesting to me in this moment as you. And if we were in physical proximity, we could greet one another, we could meet and do a bow and say to each other, Ya Shakur. Or we could even hold hands. But here, we're at a distance in a way. But it doesn't mean we can't meet one another and say with that intention, in a way it's, how grateful I am that you're here. You, yes. You. And so we'll do it 9 times. Ya Shakur. We fill our hearts, we fill our hands with the energy of our hearts, and we unmute. And we say simply with the hand gesture, Ya Shakur. And when I do this, I like to go from one person to the next and just see what happens. So, are you ready? Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur. 6 more. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur. Ya
Shakur.
Ya
Shakur.
Ya
Shakur.
And once more. Ya
Shakur.
Thank you, dear beloved Dharma friends. May you have a wonderful and grateful and safe rest of the day. And I'll be on tomorrow at 7 as per usual, but not next Sunday. All right.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Namaste, Robert.
All for coming.
Be well, everyone. Be well, be well, be well.
Have a mindful day.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Robert.
I love this. Everyone gets bigger and bigger as people leave. Denise, you're in yet another new place.
Oh, I set up a little altar in the backyard at the farm.
Ah. I see a Kuan Yin back there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually great. It already has like moss growing on it.
Whoa.
On a certain side, and I got some rocks. And then there's that's Oldie Doldie's fleece. And I'll plant some plants through it. But the wool makes good mulch.
Oh, be great mulch, I would think, yeah. All right, friends.
Yeah.
Hello, Allison.
Or
Goodbye, Jim. I love seeing the outdoors in your life
Bye,
so
all.
much, Denise.
But there's no end to it. I have plants in the garden to go put out too. I always had a friend that told me I was bringing out in.
You're bringing what? Oh. Goodbye, Allison. All right. So, thank you, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. Just a reminder, you can join us more in person on Zoom. And you can find the link to that